thank you that we're all here at school. And thank you for the opportunity that my group has to talk a little bit about how exactly you worked in Mantua and all the little experiences that we had over there. I just ask that you'll be with us now, even though you know that we are very unprepared and unorganized, and we apologize for that. But please continue to be with us and guide us as we're going to speak, and continue to be with us throughout this day, as many of us have tests and so on also. In your name, amen. Okay, how are we starting this?
Would you like the pictures at the front or at the end?
How do we do it at the end?
All right, let's do it.
Leah, would you like to read a story?
Sure.
Leah can read a story. Here we go. Yeah, here.
How many of you guys heard about our little issue or trouble with the government? Have you heard about that or not? Okay. Well, before I went on this mission trip and I heard that I was signed up to go to Cuba, I literally started crying. I was like, I'm going to Cuba? To a communist country? And I was like, all I could think about was like, I could get arrested and I could have trouble with the government, and all I'm going to see there is government officials. And I actually didn't see that many, except our group was the one who actually had issues with the government. The only group that had issues with it was mine. Yeah. And I was like, all right, God, I see what you're doing. But it was really, like, it was scary at first, and I was freaking out because they were asking, like, where are your passports and visas? And, like, I was starting to, like, go into panic mode. But, like, it all turned out to be okay, and you'll see that in the story that I'm about to read.
This is written by Henry Suggs. He's the one who kind of runs all WYG, and he's the one that really makes this all happen. He was able to put together this little short story based off of what happened to our group. But it's amazing to see what really went on behind the scenes throughout this, because we didn't know all that stuff that was happening in the meantime. To us, we're just like, okay, we'll do this and this and this. There's a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes that God was just working through.
Yeah. All right, I will read it. The Mantua story. Weimar Academy teams, led by Vasily Olsichek, are in the midst of World Youth Group evangelistic campaigns in the west of Cuba, one city being Mantua in the far west. Friday, March 29th, an immigration official in their town came to the house church where they were preaching and vehemently declared, "You can't be here. You can't stay in this house. This is a house and not a church. You can't preach here, and you can't hold these meetings. You need to come down to the police station today and tomorrow, and you must depart our city. We will call the central government, even the minister of religious affairs, Caridad Diego, and tell her you are in our city and are being disobedient, and you are not obeying our laws, and you are preaching in a house. You would not listen to any explanations. Oh, you are preaching in a house, sorry. And you are preaching where it is not allowed, and you must leave and not return. We will also call the president of the SDA union and tell him you people are disobeying our laws." The official would not listen to any explanations. His word was final. Weimar Academy and the World Youth Group mission team prayed in earnest before departing for the police station. In the meantime, they called Pastor Samuel, World Youth Group chaplain for Cuba, and told Weimar Academy, told him everything. Samuel immediately called Pastor Joel Labrador, SDA Mission Vice President for Pinar del Rio. And Pastor Joel, said Samuel, "We have a big problem in Mantua," telling him everything that had transpired. "You must go ASAP to Mantua, and you must not delay. You cannot delegate this to anyone else. And you must go yourself and see if anything can be done. You must speak with the officials in that city." Pastor Joel replied that he had no transportation as his car was broken. "Rent a car, Joel. You must find a way and go as soon as possible. I will help you with the expenses," replied Samuel. Pastor Samuel felt it would be unwise to broadcast what was happening, but knew he needed people praying. Being very careful, he called a few people who knew he would go right to their knees, telling them confidentially how serious this was, what to pray for, and urging them to pray that the Lord would fight for us as in the days of old, that God would somehow defend our people, give faith to Vasily and the Weimar team. "Pray, pray, pray," Samuel told them. The Weimar group and our mission team in Mantua also dedicated their time to pray. Pastor Joel arrived in the city of Mantua the next morning on Saturday. At the same time, he arrived was walking into the government office, an inspector of higher government rank also walked in the building. The inspector had been called in by the local officials to solve the problem and stop the preaching and remove these people from their city. I haven't read this at all yet, so this is kind of new to me too. The inspector looked closely at Pastor Joel walking in with him and blurted out, "I know you!" Pastor Joel, not recognizing him, asked, "How do you know me? I don't think I know you." The inspector said, "Yes, I'm sure I know you. I recognize your voice and I recognize your face." Pastor Joel still could not remember him. "Many years ago," told the inspector, you rented a large house with many people occupying every room to hold meetings. There was only one room in that large house that you did not rent. That is because I had that room reserved for my daughter's 15th birthday celebration, and our family stayed in that room while you were holding the meetings in the gathering room. I have a picture of you with my daughter. Yes, I remember you perfectly." Pastor Joel replied, "I do remember those meetings." The inspector continued, "You were teaching a seminar in the main room of the house. I listened from my room carefully to know if you were speaking anything against our government. And every day you were speaking on how to have a better marriage, a happy family, and a stronger relationships. I never heard anything like what you were teaching in my life. I became very interested in what you were saying. I was stunned at the wisdom in what you are sharing. I began cherishing every word. I have kept what you taught in my heart to this day, and have practiced all of these concepts in my home and relationships. What you taught me changed my life. If this group in Mantua that I have been called to remove are your people, there will be no removal of these people. There will be no trouble. There will be no trouble here. I will solve everything. Please go forward with your meetings. Everything is good. Everything will be fine. I will call back to the government headquarters myself and tell them everything is good and everything is fine. When you walked into this office beside me today, I didn't yet know who you were, but I suddenly felt alive like I've never felt. I wondered why and looked at you and recognized who you were. Please, I want to tell you I'm sorry for everything that has happened to this group. Please, I want you to continue to preach these important meetings. And recognize, we know you don't preach in any compromised way, and you say only what is true. What you preach and what you bring to our people in Cuba is what they need. We are grateful because the work you are doing changes lives and makes safer and better our cities. We have many people living in ignorance, violence, vice, and evil. The only reason I am here from this point forward is to protect you, that you may not only do this kind of work and not have any trouble from us, but that you can preach in a greater way and finish very well these meetings. The church has many good pastors, but your people know how to find broken people, ignorant people, violent and bad people in our cities, and change them by your strong preaching. Please go forward. My only request, however, is that you must preach even more strongly than you are. You must preach very well this news and change this city. I wish you could have been there for the tears of joy and rejoicing on the mission team this evening. The news. The Weimar and World Youth Group mission team said, it was as if the stories and promises of scriptures came alive before us and was unfolding in front of us. God is fighting for his people. God is defending his people, and God has turned an impossible thing into a victory. Like in the days of Jehoshaphat, the Lord God Almighty has delivered his people. That was interesting. That's awesome.
You didn't read that before, did you?
No, I didn't read that. I had no clue any of this stuff was going on.
Yeah, see, I didn't know either until I read it. Because Henry said that to me, and I was very confused at first, because I didn't know all that was going behind the scenes. Because meanwhile, all I know is that I was in the backyard, and I was working on sermons for that night, and then the translator came up to me, and he was like, "JC, I need you in the front right now." I was like, "Why? What's going on?" And he's like, "The police are here. They're asking for your passports and stuff. You have all that, right?" And I was like, "I have copies of everything. Mr. O isn't here. He's the one that has all the originals." And they're like, "Well, bring out the copies for now then, because I guess that's what they'll take." So I went out there, and Leah and Lindsay are like hiding in the other room, and I'm just there fishing through all my documents and stuff, and I handed them all the like passports and all the visas. Oh wait, I have all the copies, so like, no, we're demanding for the originals and whatever. But it was a little bit freaky, because we didn't know exactly what to do. Next morning, we got ready for church, like it was the usual ordeal, and then the translators came up to us again, and they're like, no, you have to come with us to immigration. We're like, what? They're like, yeah, they didn't, like, they told us very minimal details, which I understand because they didn't want us to freak out, but...
We already were.
Yeah,
you were freaking out.
You were freaking out. But it ended up being so good, because we just got there, they were expecting us to be interrogated, but they didn't tell us that, but that's what they're expecting for us that to happen to us. But we ended up just being there, and just hanging out outside for a while, and playing random games, and telling, like, jokes and stuff around, while meanwhile Mr. O and the rest of the conference is on the inside with the inspector. And then later they came out and they're like, okay, we're fine, we could go home. And we're like, okay, we'll go home. And we got ready for that night's sermon. We didn't know any of the other drama that was going on behind the scenes. So it's really interesting to see like how perfectly that all went, when it could have been so bad. Do you have something there, Lindsay? No. And Lindsay wants to share. Oh, sure. Lindsay does.
So, we put together a slideshow, and I guess this will be a perfect time to start it. So, this is the first part that Mrs. O took, and we were flying on an airplane, and of course, and this is just the aerial view of Cuba. And honestly, when I first going to Cuba, I was like. At first, I wanted to go to Brazil and Kenya. I was like, my dad's a dentist, he'll be so proud of me. Even though I don't want to be a dentist, I want to be my dad. So I wanted to go to Kenya originally, but I heard that I was put in Cuba, and I was like, oh, okay, got it. I want to preach, but I was like, okay, got it, this is where you lead me. So originally, I didn't want to go to Cuba, but when I was actually in the Cuban airport, like in Havana airport, I was like, oh, I'm actually here, I'm actually going to preach. And on the airplane, I was really like thinking hard about, I mean, I enjoy public speaking, so preaching isn't like a huge like nerve-wracking thing for me. And so, but during the airplane, I was just kind of nervous, like, what am I going to say? Come on, like, I'm really nervous. And I was thinking about the PowerPoint slides, but Jory had that covered, thank you. And this is the house. So we were staying in this city called Mantua. It's not really a city, but in Cuban terms, it can be considered a city. It's a bunch of houses together.
35,000, it's a city.
Sure. 35,000 people, and this is their like typical house. This house was called the Chinchilla House. It's very well known throughout all of Mantua. So every single day when we were inviting people with slips of paper that said, hey, come to Mantua House, we're having evangelistic series there. We're talking about health talks and God, and there's a children's program. So when we were talking about that, everyone knew where this house was. The yellow house on the left is called the Chinchilla House, and it's a very historic house. And that's where we stayed at, and that's where the Cuban pastor stayed at, where he graciously let us stay at his house. So that is where we stayed, and yeah. So this is our group. So of course this is me, Lindsay. That's our pastor's wife. So the pastor was the one. That was his house we're staying at, and that's his wife, and that's his daughter Maria, and he also has a little boy. He's not in this picture, but he's a really rambunctious, really energetic boy. He's small. And this is Leah and Jason, and they just preaching together. And then every single day we went through visitations, and in visitations we would do different things. Like we would pass out cards inviting people, or sometimes we would have Bible studies there. And this is one of the ladies what we went to, and. Yeah, some houses, like when you're going to Cuba, you can kind of have a sense of what kind of house it is. Sometimes you can tell if this person is poor, this person's decently off. And then, so this woman was decently well. If you look at this house, my first impression of this house was like, okay, I'm really glad that I have a house in America. My house is so much nicer. But when I saw this woman's house and I reflected upon other Cuban homes, I was like, wow, this is a really nice house. And you see the chairs, they're almost like leather, so they're really nice, and it has a big open space. And so this lady, we were going on visitations, and this is one of the ladies. So this is one of our translators, Michael, and that's the That's the pastor that we saw earlier. He was the one whose house we stayed at. And so this is what we'd like to do the next 3 slides.
These kids do so good, it's hard to get up and try to measure up to all of them. But my husband and I went out one afternoon when, you know, there's siesta time, we were kind of bored. And so we went to, as we were walking through the town, we saw the library and it was open air. And I was like, hey, I kind of stopped and looked and he goes, do you want to go in? And I'm like, okay. And so we did, and it kind of reminded me of the Weimar library when I first worked up there. It was very simple and old books, kind of looks like more of a historic museum or like a salvage store. But anyways, while we were there, my husband, being the sanguine that he is, started a conversation with one of the workers, and I don't know how the man understands because he doesn't speak Spanish, but for 15 minutes we sat there and bantered with this 2 ladies that work in the library. And with all of that, I mean, I tried, I would like stop and ask them, what tense was that? And, you know, I'm all this vocab, but I don't catch the concepts, and he's carrying on this conversation. So this one lady, I can't really remember her name, but she very graciously said, hey, when you're done here, why don't you go stop by and see my husband? He's at home, and he would love to talk to foreigners, because I guess it's kind of a rarity up there. So we did make our way down to the house, and apparently they're fairly well off. They had a large house that was pre-revolution, because everything there is kind of pre or post-revolution, 1959, when, I don't know, Fidel Castro and company took over, and they're bad people, they're communists. Anyway, I can say that because I'm in America. Hallelujah. So it's a very nice home, large doors. He took us, he put us on the veranda, and he started to talk, and he tried to figure out what language to communicate in. And I guess he thought that our Spanish was a little worse than his English, so he ended up sort of standing up and giving us a lecture. He's a writer and a teacher of history. So the long story short of that is he's probably a thought leader in the community, and he opened my eyes to just how bad the situation is in Cuba. And he let me know that there's 4 or 5 congressmen here in the U.S. that are Cuban, and that apparently they're not very favorable, or they don't have a sympathetic heart to the people back home because they keep tightening the embargo. And so enough said on that, except to say that I would encourage you all to read up on what's going on over there, and as the Lord gives you occasion to try and visit there and do mission work there, because they have a lot of needs. So anyways, that fellow, his name is Enrique Martinez, I think, and he has 2 books for publication with an editor in Los Angeles. So Vasily came back after we got home and said, we made it home safely and really enjoyed making your acquaintance. Thank you for sharing your home. And kind of a little sidelight to that is her sister had served in Kyiv, Ukraine, and learned Russian, I guess it was, or Ukrainian even. And I think it was Russian. Anyway, so they went over and got her at her house and brought her over. And so Vasily and she were speaking in Russian. They're in their living room, and we were all just like, it is a small world after all. These Americans come to Cuba and they meet somebody they can speak Russian with, and I'm trying to speak my Spanish. But we encourage Pastor Pavel and his wife Lillian to make friends with them and to give them a great controversy. Even that is hard to get a hold of for them, so they'll have to get it back at the seminary. They have a printing press there. But anyways, we invited them to come visit us if they ever make it to America, and that's a big gift because people basically feel like they're in jail there. It's a closed country. It's kind of like Albania. People can't come in or go out except through extenuating circumstances and miraculous deliverances. So keep that in mind. We have a lot to be grateful for. Thank you. And then maybe there's, oh yeah, that's just the auntie that we made friends with. So, and then there's a little girl that kept coming to the meetings, and I was like, man, if they're poor, can I adopt her and take her? Because she was just adorable. And so anyways, as you can tell, they endeared us to themselves, and I hope I get a chance to visit again someday.
The beach? Go for it. You guys, this is so disorganized. We're sorry. Okay, this is when we went to the beach our first week on Sunday. And these are some of the kids from the meetings. And this little girl was so thrilled that we were from California because she thought it was like this great place, you know, baby. But she was like, "You're from America?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "What part?" I was like, "California." And she was like, "Ah!" That's a bit crazy. Okay, so this guy is, I don't know his name. Cowboy shirt. Yeah, that one day he used the size of our cowboy hat, and we thought And so his wife, like, was trying to balance all this, like, take care of him, take care of the house, pay for stuff. And, like, the first day we met her, she was really depressed, and you could see it on her face. Like, she was just, like, under so much. And, like, she didn't smile that much either. But, like, each day we came to visit her, it was like something else kept dropping off of her burden. And, like, her burden kept getting lighter and lighter. And, like, every day she would smile more. Until, like, the last day we saw her, she had a huge smile on her face. And I love to see that. I love seeing transformation. And her husband ended up getting baptized, but not underwater. It was like he had to declare his faith and testify because they couldn't get him under the water. I don't know why. Probably because he was too fertile. But, like, it was cool to see him get baptized. And we got to see a lot of people get baptized, too. Okay, not a lot. It was 4 people we got to see. 6? It was 6 people? Yeah, all right. 6 people we saw get baptized. And they were, like, so excited. All of them were so happy to get baptized and just go under that water. And even the pastor's little boy got baptized. And I was sobbing for that one. It was just, because his sister was crying and I was like all my emotions were, it was so precious to see. And they all were just so happy afterwards. And they were all my friends. Like, I got to get super close with them in those 2 weeks. And they treated me like family. All of them did there. And I loved to get to know them. Oh yeah, here's one of the baptisms. That's your lady that you worked on her.
We got to do wound care on her foot. She's a diabetic with a non-healing fiddle, so she had stepped on a nail and they had surgical debris. It wasn't healing. So, but anyway, she got baptized.
Yeah. All right, is that it? Great. All right, that's great.
We're going to play a song now in closing so that you don't have something. We are? Okay.
Wait, we're doing? I was going to say something new.
Oh, some things we weren't. Next. Yeah, go first.
Okay, so, where do I start? I learned a lot, not only about myself, but about these people, all of them, some in not desirable ways. We got closer, that's for sure. And we became very bonded, and we knew a lot about each other at the fellowship. Not always desirable, I said that already. But, like, I learned a lot. God taught me, He showed me a lot of my character that I need to work on. He's showing me that every day, but, like, very specifically, He was like, you need to work on this, and then I was like, oh. I was like, you're right, God. And He just, like, I learned a lot from those people. There's this cliche term that you hear when you go on mission, but it's like, the people teach you more than you're going to teach them. And it's so true, because I learned way more about Jesus Christ and about being a Christian than I'd ever learned anywhere else. And it was from them. And they showed me true pure religion. There's a verse in the Bible that says, pure religion in its truest form is like visiting the widow and visiting the sick. And that's what they were doing. That's what the pastor was doing. And he was like dedicated to those people. He would like visit them every single day and make sure that they knew they were welcome in God's family and that they were loved by not just God but them and everybody in that town. And I also learned that I don't, like, they have all this, I mean, I have all this stuff, and they have very little, just like every person, a lot of people in third world countries. But I learned that I don't need that stuff, and I can get along just fine without it, because they're doing the same thing in a country, and they've been doing it all their lives, so like, why can't I do that? And I learned that God, like, literally will provide for you, and that He's a way maker, and He's a miracle worker. And He showed Himself to me on that trip by what He did for us. He literally did miracles. I don't have time to go through all of them, but like, that was firsthand. I got to see miracles. And this is also my first time out of the country, so. Yeah. And my first time on a plane, my first time preaching.
She killed it. She was so nervous. She's like, ah, I can't do yada, yada, yada. And then she did like absolutely amazing. We're like, are you serious?
No. One guy fell asleep during my sermon. No song. So
I think we all learned about trust. We all learned about faith. We all witnessed so many different kinds of miracles in our own ways. Some of them our whole group faced together, and some of them were just so personal. I think we could all testify to that. And I think that's a great way to end it. Who would like to, Lindsay would like to close in prayer.
Right. So let's pray. Father in heaven, I want to praise You so much that I've had to go an opportunity, all of us, to go to Mantua, And Father, thank you so much for just giving us this wonderful, wonderful chance to witness for you and just share your word. And it's such a blessing for me personally. And God, I pray that our memories that we made stay with us, and the friendships that we made, that they will continue so. And continue to bless us and bless the people in Mantua. And Father, just continue to be with us throughout the rest of this day. And thank you for blessing us today. In your name, I pray.
Amen.